nil. There was a lot of motivation. The players had been promised £1 million each for every win, and they did not disappoint. I'm privileged to have in studio Kipruto Rapkirwa, who served as Minister for Agriculture in the Kibaki administration and also served as member of the National Assembly representing Cherangani constituency before that. Bwana Kirwa, karibu sana.
It's my pleasure.
It is interesting what this kind of motivation can do, but either way, congratulations to the Star.
Yeah.
What is your feeling about yesterday's win?
Well, I do want to join other Kenyans who celebrated the win by Kenya against the DRC Congo. I do so because the sport that we have in Kenya has been facing a number of challenges in the past, especially football, where they change coaches, they change the managers of various football associations, but the results almost are the same. My take is also to appreciate that the president gave them that incentive, that once they win, they will get 1 million shillings. I do hope the 1 million will not just come immediately until the whole entire game is over, for purposes of ensuring that people don't start shopping before it is before we are over with the games. But more important, Fred, is that sports largely have put the map of Kenya on international scale. It's only that we've not been able to be more innovative, apart from such one-off incentives that like the one the president gave. We need to think holistically about sports in Kenya. Here in our neighboring country, and I was privileged to be there for a number of years, about 4 years, only to learn that any sportsman winning large, the government will give a certain incentive by giving a suitable area to build a structure, whether it's a hotel, whether it is some business premises, to make sure that at the end of the day, when they retire, there is something to retire to. Okay. Because we must appreciate talent. Those who get into other professions, when they retire, there is what we call pension. Now, this sports person, whose lifeline may be about 4 to 8 years at most, when they retire, most of them retire to misery. Now, the suggestions I'm giving is that apart from incentives, make sure you don't overtax them. At times in the past, they said somebody, Chelimo, won about 60 million shillings. But much of the money never got back to Kenya. And when it gets to Kenya, Kenya Revenue Authority will also go for that money. And at times you wonder, why don't you encourage these people by ensuring that you give them some kind of leeway instead of giving them such huge taxation? You can just tax a bit, but allow the bulk of the money to be retained by the player.
Right.
For purposes of ensuring that we appreciate that it is the map of Kenya that is promoted by them.
Okay.
You realized when they win, like in the Olympics, the national anthem is played for a minute. And that is a sign that they are better than all the ambassadors put together by promoting Kenya.
What would you say about this administration's approach to improving the infrastructure in as far as sports is concerned? This is a discussion that has been there for quite a while, and the stadia infrastructure that we've been having has been very minimal. In fact, we had problems hosting international tournaments. For the first time now, we're seeing an administration that is keen on improving. We are getting a new stadium for the first time in many years. What would you say to that?
We do appreciate the stadium that they have just built here. But my problem is, what is the cost against the envisaged cost at the beginning of time? Again, what are the side shows? We are told there's a hotel being built next to it that belongs not to the Kenya National Association of Sports, but to some individuals who are not part of the sports complex. So my worry is really not the fact that this regime is doing well on that front. My worry is that is every penny that is spent going to be something that is value for money to the Kenyan people? Realizing that all of us are here, tomorrow will not be there, but some of these structures will remain. Okay. I just have a fond memory of one cabinet meeting where President Kibaki, some of us we were excited. We wanted to change the Nyayo Stadium into something else. Then President Kibaki told us, okay, why did the people who built it name it that way? Why don't we build other stadia and look for new names instead of changing names? What will it change by removing a name Nyayo and adding another name? Possibly we wanted the late Kijana Wamalwa Stadium instead of Nyayo Stadium. But today I'm happy there is a Wamalwa Stadium elsewhere in the country, built by the resources of Kenyan people. So let's think out of the box. Let us think holistically that we are here today, we are not there tomorrow.
All right. Allow me to welcome Makali Mulu to the panel. Makali Mulu is the MP Kitui Central. Good morning, karibu sana.
Hi, good morning, Fred.
As I give you an opportunity to congratulate Harambee Stars on their win yesterday, we're trying to assess this administration's approach to sports and whether or not it's doing better. The kind of incentive offered, R1 million per player for every win for Harambee Stars, appears to be doing magic.
Yeah, Fred, let me start by really congratulating Harambee Stars for that good start. You know, it was very encouraging to see them winning the match, and as a result of that, they earned themselves $1 million. I don't know that it's $1 million per player, or is it?
Per player.
Per player. Yeah. Wow. So it's quite encouraging. It motivates them, and I think they will continue doing well. But Fred, I think really we must appreciate that we are one of the countries hosting CHAN. It's a good opportunity for East Africa. And the preparations have taken place. We've seen a number of stadia coming up, and the existing ones being upgraded, which is good for the country. But generally, when you look at the way we've conducted our sports business, all the way from athletics, football, I think really it's like we don't have a serious map plan, what I would call master plan for our sports. Because governments over time have been promising we're going to build more stadia. They even come with the numbers, how many they will do. Like now the Kenya Kwanza had promised quite a number of stadia all over the country. And I can tell you for sure most of them are just stuck at some level. They're not completed. What makes it even worse is that now we have a fund. There is a fund which takes care of sports in addition to other things, which has a lot of resources. And what has happened over time, we've questioned the accountability in terms of use of those resources. Because it was very clear where the money should go, but you realize that at times you get returns and you wonder whether the money should have been used there. So now that we have a fund which takes care of that, I think it will be important that we have we plan well for our sports men and women. The other thing which has been worrying is the incentives to our sports persons. For example, now it's football. You can see they're getting $1 million. We have these ones who go out there to do athletics. They also do well. But if you look at those who have retired, at times you question yourself whether, is it that they don't manage resources personally well, or is it that we don't build their capacity to manage resources, or is it that they are wasteful? Because the kind of figures which are normally mentioned when they win are figures which would turn lives around for the better, not for the worse. But after retirement, they just, there seems to be a problem. So I think the government needs to come up with a program of how to assist them so that when they're active, and you know normally they would retire when they are young. Sports is not like you and me who are you work up to retirement age. Sports, most of them retire between 30 and 40. At that age, you are retired. So it means you have a long way to live. And unless you are advised well so that the resources you make between you are 18 and 30, because at times they make huge resources, that you invest well. And as a result of this investment, then you can be able to get your retirement kind of support. I think to me, those are the issues for me. But generally, as a country, the talent is there. It's tapping the talent, which we are not doing well. And I think really our sports ministry needs to be one of our top ministries, because if you look around, sports to play two roles. One of them is indigenous income for our sports persons, our sportsmen and women. And normally what would happen is that most of these resources are from the international space, so that they're not locally generated. So it's like their sisters even getting foreign exchange for the country. The second bit is a very good unifying factor. I tell you, it's only when sports are taking place in this country, when we hardly talk about our tribes, we hardly talk about our political affiliation, because at time we see ourselves as Kenyan. At times I've watched the kind of excitement when somebody gets a gold in either 10,000 or in 3,000 steeplechase. And normally, if you are in a social place, you see the excitement, and nobody cares about that person who has won that gold, whether it's a Kamba, whether it's a Kalenjin, whether it's a Kikuyu. We see them as Kenyans, which means this is another platform as a country we can actually ride on to unify the country.
Right.
So we should be encouraging more sportsmen and women, so that we have many champions out of that. And as a result of that, then Kenyans will feel as more of united country than what we see in other areas like politics and these other things. So generally, I think it's good to have this tournament in our these championships in our country, Uganda and Tanzania. I also see a good opportunity. Now the three countries have been meeting to plan for this, and you see we're having. I don't want to call them serious problems, but small problems. More commercial problem. Like you saw last week, there was the issue of Tanzania saying Kenyans in doing business in Tanzania could not do some types of businesses. So when these three countries plan together, like now they are planning, although they should be doing it under the East Africa community, is another opportunity to continue building cohesion for the region, yes. And that will help the region.
And thank you for bringing that up, because it's an issue and it came up last week, Bwana Kirwa. You've been involved in matters diplomacy across the region for quite a while. Yeah. Now, many Kenyans are questioning the integrity of the EAC treaty going forward, that we spend a lot of money as a nation. We've opened up our borders to so many different people, yet Tanzania, which is a signatory to the same treaty, pulls back and decides to adopt some protectionist ideas. And some Kenya legislators were even suggesting that Kenya should do the same to Tanzania. Probably other neighbors as well should do the same. Do you think that that is a possible way out of this, or how else can we renegotiate this? Is the EAC still feasible going forward?
Well, you know, in any progress all over the world, at times you make 3 steps forward, then you make 2 steps backwards. Knowing that Tanzania now is going through an election year, and possibly Suluhu Hassan, President of Tanzania, may want to have a smooth sail in the next elections. But I'm sure overall she will be able to use her wisdom to realize the futility of trying to look at Kenya in isolation, because the issue of integration, even the issue of integration of the entire continent in terms of trade, movement of goods and services, is something that should be encouraged, because as you know, at the beginning of time, we had very little business to do with our neighbors, apart from East Africa, because we are under the same master, the British master. We had very little business with DRC at that particular time. But today, there is some improvement, although we are still at about 18% inter-African trade compared with the trade with other parts of the world. And of course, this is there are many other factors, including the issue of infrastructure, issues of tradition, issues of culture, issues of language, because when the Mzungu came, he made sure that he gave us different languages, as the languages we accepted to be our own language, including the language I'm using now. And that became a serious bearing, to the extent that at times when you meet in international fora, those who are French-speaking, English-speaking, those who are Portuguese-speaking, you realize they will congregate at corners during break time. This therefore tells you we do not really have that kind of seamless movement of goods and services. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure at the level of the summit, Tanzania will be called to order, because it is not only against normal existence of neighborhood, but also it's against the very basic principle of saying East Africa, our final product should be the freedom to move goods and services across the borders. That's why for the last couple of years, almost now a number of years, we've been doing budgets almost on the same day, so that if there are certain comparable tariffs, we're able to deal with them almost on the same day, so that we don't confuse the budgeting process of each and every country. But Tanzania overall is a country that I was brought up in, so I have some nostalgic feelings about it. But when you look at it critically, they seem to have small brother syndrome, where they feel, even where we do not have any undue advantage over them, they feel these Kenyans have come to take the space for our people. And yet, there are many non-Kenyans that I see even hawking in the streets of Nairobi. And you can see from the language they speak, you know they are not from Kenya. But because they are Africans, we say let them try their life. Possibly they will have a story to write home when they do well. Because any hawker in the street can also be a merchant and also can be a wholesaler. Who knows?
Yes, indeed. A lot of parallels can be drawn with what's happening in the region, matters to do with diplomacy and directive by President Samia Suluhu Hassan on foreigners being banned from taking over some businesses or running some businesses there. But something positive, we are co-hosting the CHAN tournament, and Kenya has a lot of reason to celebrate. It is a big story and definitely one of the best stories to start a Monday with. On all the front pages, and I said this, even the Business Daily, at least there's mention of Harambee Stars winning against DRC yesterday. Congratulations once again to the Harambee Stars. And we'll continue watching to see if at all the motivation for 1 million shillings each will continue spurring them for more wins. All right, let's now talk matters politics. And because it's the other big discussion, I think it is on the front page of Taifa Leo. And on the front page of Taifa Leo, let me just get the proper wording. We have a picture of the SG of ODM party, Edwin Sifuna. If my director can help me with that as well. The front page, yes. Do we have it? Yes. Mrengo mpya wazaliwa. Siasa wasema lengo lao ni kutoa uongozi mbadala na kukabiliana na utawala mbaya wa Kenya Kwanza. Now, this coming only days after the SG of ODM read out, as a spokesman of the party resolution to support William Ruto going forward. Let's watch this story about the broad-based jitters in as far as Kenya politics is concerned.
The new wave of youthful political leadership in the country is gaining momentum as leaders opposed to the broad-based government took their campaigns to Trans Nzoia County today. ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna, alongside members of parliament including Saboti MP Kaleba Misi, made their position clear. They will continue to openly criticize the government while maintaining their respect to ODM leader Raila Odinga.
Wakati nitabaki kama katibu mkuu wa chama, nitasoma resolutions za viungo vya chama. I will read all the resolutions that are made by organs of ODM, except one. Except one. Which one? Wanataka ODM wakipitisha waseme Sifuna ni shenzi kabisa, nitasoma. Wakisema huyu Sifuna ni bure kabisa, nitasoma. Lakini siku ile watapitisha ati chama cha ODM kitafunga Kasongo mkono mwaka wa 2027. Hiyo nataka niseme mbele yenu na mbele ya Mwenyezi Mungu. wanasema hatuna heshima kwa Raila. Number one, Raila is our father of the nation. There is no question about it. Sawa. Hata wale ambao wanatusi Raila ninawaambia, I may not agree with Raila, but usimutusi. Sawa.
The leaders vote to defend Kenyans from what they termed political and economic oppression, accusing the government of intimidating the opposition leaders who hold different views.
Ambaye nimefunzwa na Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga kwamba lazima kila siku tusimame na haki. Mnataka ninyamaze wakati mambo yanaendelea mbaya? Naambia baba hivi, nimwambie simwambie? Niambie baba simwambie? Mimi Caleb Amisi, ukiamua kuunga mkono William Ruto, baba, that will be the end of me and you, amen.
They also said Kenya now needs young leaders with fresh vision to help improve the lives of ordinary citizens.
Sisi tunataka Kenya mpya. Tunataka viongozi wapya. Kwani Caleb hatoshi? Caleb hatoshi? Huyu Sifuna mnamuona? Muangalie tena, mnaona huyu Sifuna? Mnaona huyu Sifuna? Anatosha hatoshi?
Isaac Famba, TV47, Trans Nzoia County.
Question is, can this movement be ignored going forward? A group of youthful opposition politicians has unveiled a new political formation dubbed Kenya Moja, positioning itself as an alternative, youth-led leadership platform to address Kenya's growing governance challenges. The movement is led by the ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna and several opposition members of parliament who accuse President William Ruto's administration of mismanagement. Bwana Makali Mulu, for anyone just looking from outside at this, they may dismiss it as just political bickering, but over and over it would appear like, yes, there's definitely a problem within ODM with the insistence by the Secretary General to speak at cross purposes with the party leader or the rest of the party. What do you read from this, even just at the ODM party level, before we even take a look at this new formation?
You know, the truth of the matter is, and we have said it many times, anytime we come here, we have said that ODM might claim that they are one, but actions and their statements confirm that it's a divided house. And that has been the case since they signed this memorandum of understanding with the Kenya Kwanza government. Senior members of ODM, some went to the government and others remained out. And I think this was a clear sign that there wasn't enough consultation, internal consultation, before this decision was taken. I think there was some members felt excluded from the process to decide that let's sign this agreement. And those who are left out were also key members and officials of the party. And I believe, anytime I look at Honorable Sifuna talk, I think from the word go, he wasn't part of this thinking. Because he has always remained very undermined that I don't support the Kenya Kwanza government. And the fact that senior officials of the party, the chairman and the rest, the top leadership of the party went to the government, although they claim they were just donated to the government, I think has really hit him hard. That I've always thought that I'm part of the key decision makers in this party, but this decision was made without my participation. And on that basis, I remain a thorn in the flesh. I keep on saying I don't support it. But I think time has come. You know, if you don't support something, to me, I don't really think, there are so many parties in this country. Why can't he just step out and allow ODM to go do their things and do other things? Why does he have to wait up to the time he's told that we no longer want you? Because I think that's what the people are saying, that why then? Because I remember at one point, you remember Governor Wanga was saying, who has given you the mandate to talk on behalf of the party? These are personal statements. You're just being told, can you step out? You also saw Honorable Mburu saying the same, that what you are saying are your personal statements. So I think he's clinging to the position, but you can see automatically people have moved without him. And I think he's waiting for the top man to tell him leave, but it's been managed. What I look at is been managed, because now he can't, yes, he also has to be called to read statements which he doesn't believe in. You saw the other time. And you have seen him now saying, I will read the statements, so long as there will be no one saying, we support. The time I will be reading a statement saying, let's support Kenya, Ruto for the presidency, I will resign. On a serious note. I think Kenyans are more smarter than that.
All right. And his voice definitely has been quite loud in terms of opposing this. And on one hand, maybe people would wonder if his position within ODM is tenable going forward. And because we've had other voices dismissing him as a novice in Kenyan politics and that without ODM he would be nothing. Do you think that is true? And his exit from ODM, what would it mean for that party going forward?
Fred, the challenge in Africa is a poverty of democracy that can be seen to be genuine. Political parties are either grafted around a coalition of tribes or around personalities, such that many of the parties, like ODM, in the absence of Raila, ODM will be a size smaller than what it is today. This therefore means that Sifuna is trying to occupy that ideal space, that the Secretary General is still the voice of the party, but things are moving differently because certain tribes believe they own ODM more than others. And what is emerging is that a number of young Kenyans who are in ODM, including people like Caleb Amisi, the MP for Saboti, Trans Nzoia, people like Babu Wino, people like Sifuna, and certain level-headed minds like that of James Orengo and Professor Anyang' Nyong'o are increasingly realizing that the direction they are moving is not tenable in terms of the next general election. But because of the respect they have for Raila, they have sort of looked the other way around because they believe the old man at the right time will use his wisdom either to bolt out of the coalition or even present himself as a candidate. Because if he does not present himself and does not present a candidate under ODM, unless William Ruto is going to defect to ODM, ODM is going to shrink by over 50%, because it will remain in some parts of Nyanza, but it will disappear almost totally in Western, except 1 or 2 counties that it will have some semblance of presence of ODM. And at the cost, that I do not know whether it will be a field day for us in the opposition and perhaps some of the Kenya Kwanza elements. And the Ma community is likely to move away from ODM. So Raila at the right time, because I know, being a politician, they never age. He may, if he's not going to run himself, he's going to run a candidate to make sure he consolidates the party. And the way I see him, and once in a while I've met him, he seems to have a soft spot for what Sifuna is saying. And he has said it publicly twice, that when you hear Sifuna talk, I'm the one talking. Don't blame it on him. And of course, it was telling Sifuna to just remain calm. He should not be too harsh. So I feel Raila is somebody in a catch-22 situation. Possibly there is a deal and understanding between himself and William Ruto. And there is also the fact that he's a political animal. He will not want to see ODM go down in his lifetime. So that is where we are today, and that is where we are likely to be. And you know, one thing we must own up is that today I can count more than 40 years ago, or about 40 years ago is when I became a member of parliament for Cherangani constituency. Now for the last 40 years, many other leaders have been born, and some of them are the Sifunas of this world. We must accept what Nyerere was saying, kungatuka, that at a certain period, ask yourself, is my presence still relevant? Is it useful? Or can I cede this space so that somebody else more agile can occupy and make the situation better?
Yes, and with such formations like what they're talking about, Kenya Moja, we've seen the rise of DAP-K as well. There appears to be a real risk with ODM losing out on its support, especially in the Western Kenya region. Do you see that as something that would make Raila Odinga uncomfortable, even as he continues sitting in the broad-based arrangement, that Western Kenya appears to be pulling away slowly from his party? Probably ODM would be left just as a Nyanza region party.
You know, anytime I talk to my colleagues who are from Western and in ODM, I think the Western is, you know, Western, they have their own parties. They have DAP-K of Wamalwa. They used to have the ANC of Mudavadi, which is now not there. We have Ford Kenya of our speaker. And the question is, do they continue? I remember the other day we went there to do United Opposition campaigns. There is this argument that I think one of their elders once said that the assumption of leadership in Western through the presidents will come from the lake. And that theory has been, is it a theory or I don't know, it's been now challenged. They are being told, for you to become the president of this country, you have to organize yourselves. And I think that's why you see people like Natembeya, people like Sifuma are now coming out strongly because they are telling the Western that this idea of waiting for this position to be handed over to us might be a dream. What we need is now to organize ourselves and go for it. And I think that's why you see now ODM with the time will become weaker in Western Kenya, because Western Kenya are thinking of a formation which will consolidate them to a bloc so that they become a serious bloc to negotiate with the rest of the other blocs. Because if you look at our politics, the way Honorable Kiro has said, initially we used to have a lot of tribal organization, but now they are thinking of more blocks so that it becomes a bloc. And that's why you see Central Kenya, like Mount Kenya, East and the Central Kenya, they are trying to form one bloc. The southeastern part of us, we are forming another bloc. Now the crises are also thinking about their own bloc, so that now the negotiation will be at the point of this bloc. And I think that's what is triggering some of the things you see. That now that the existing parties, which have been led by Honorable Mudavadi and Honorable Waitangula, seem to have become part of Kenya Kwanza, and they seem to be keen on forming a bloc. Now these new faces, the Natembeyas, the Wamalo, and the Sifunas, and Kareba are saying, why can't we then start thinking about a formation which will help us negotiate? But I think we've said it many times here. Ruto being the sitting president, if we have to win the seat from him in a democratic way, the more we have separate formations talking about assuming presidency, the more they are increasing its chances of coming back. So what the idea, I've listened to what the young parliamentarians are saying. They are saying they want to work hard to get Ruto out of office. To that extent, I agree with them. That all of us, that is our goal, number one. But now, how to get him out of office has to be a very well thought strategy. It can't just be everybody goes there and says we are going to do it. So anytime I start now seeing them talk about another formation, we already have a united opposition. Anytime I start thinking people talk about another formation, it now starts opening the doors for division.
All right. And
I tell you, we need a united opposition to get Kenya Kwanza out of government, and not more formation.
And indeed, the dailies have captured that well, because on page 9 of the Standard, there's a headline there, Inside Ruto's Plot to Split Opposition and Retain Power in 2027. And they talk about a plot to lure Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka with the offer of being running mate come 2027 under William Ruto. That's on the Standard. On the Daily Nation, page 7, opposition unity at risk as leadership feuds intensify. Parties have not agreed on how they will field candidates in upcoming elections. It is part of the stories we've covered here. Opposition had stance. Let's watch that story before we... okay, all right. And yes, I know, Bonakirwa, you're part of this effort to have a united opposition.
Yes.
But there are some serious challenges.
Yes.
Now, as Bwanamulu says, clearly another formation coming into the fray, that would present a further challenge. We've seen the kind of fights within DAP-K, with Natembeya and Eugene Wamalwa appearing to fight for the control of that party. Definitely, this is going to determine a lot. Any division, any cracks within the opposition will give William Ruto a better chance in 2027.
Yeah, for those of us who have had the privilege and the favor to be around long enough on this political landscape, I'm not feeling threatened by some of the nuances that we are seeing on various political formations, because it is normal. Even in a normal management issue, you do not expect that conflict will not arise. But the most important thing is how you resolve that conflict, and it will leave you more united than if the conflict had not arisen at all. Because it is like when you enter Form 1 or first year at the university, and you look at each other, because you've been doing very well in various schools, you think you'll be the top student. Well, time will only tell you that you are not as good as you thought. There are other people who are gifted in various corners. And that's the same for politicians. Even the young politicians who are talking of Kenya Moja, it is normal. I remember in the run-up to 2002 election, we had a number of parties that came together. They agreed at the beginning, and people were making fun of us. That I remember the famous one was, what is one lady doing in one room with two men, which many people made it, oh, these people are taking a lot of tea. Eventually, when the chips were down, we were able to come together and we got a resounding win. I have the same feeling and the same spirit that with a bit of grafting of the coalition building initiatives, including at the lower level, at the constituency, even at the ward level, that will make a cement on top of which our national party leaders will be able to have some strong position. Because while we do believe in democracy, we do not want to isolate an individual that is thinking different from us. So my take is that, like the one of DAP-K, they have already gotten into a process of trying to resolve the dispute by identifying there is a dispute declared, and the committee is going to be formed to be chaired by somebody who qualifies to be a judge of the High Court or a senior person. And that will take a couple of weeks, a couple of months. And once they resolve some of those disputes, we'll be stronger in that part of the country. Likewise, we expect some forays, even some people making statements. I was seeing people making statements like they're inviting the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka to join them. Nothing can be further from the truth. Nothing can be so absurd as to imagine Kalonzo Musyoka saying, I'm going to be running mate to William Ruto. That I can say authoritatively, not because I've asked the gentleman, the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, whether his opinion is the same. I know from his DNA. And I've said before, and I can say it again, Kalonzo Musyoka has been a victim of propaganda. You know, there are two propagandists in this country, and when they face you, you run the risk of being taken wrongly. They used to call him watermelon, and that's propaganda from Raila and William Ruto. Today, who is the watermelon? I don't want to name names, but who is the watermelon? Who is the person who betrays others? There are many people who have litany of betrayals in their political career, but Kenyans are sort of so nice to them, and when you are genuine, they feel you are boring. It reminds me of college life, where the most notorious boys used to be the most famous in the institution, and those who were a bit calm were said to be boring because they were more organized, they were less outgoing, and this is what is happening even on our political landscape. I can see with certainty there is unanimity in one thing, one term.
All right. But Mulu, then why do we keep seeing this kind of suggestions that your party leader, of all those leaders in the united opposition, if I may call it that, that he's the one who looks likely to bolt out and cross over to the other side? Is the media being unfair to Kalonzo Musyoka?
No, you know what is happening? Where I come from, we say, if you see young boys throwing stones to a mango tree, there are fruits there. Otherwise, if there are no fruits, nobody would be bothering about the mango tree. What is happening in this united opposition? Kenya Kwanza has done the analysis and they have realized that the biggest threat to their leadership would be Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka if he becomes a flag bearer of that united opposition. So what they're trying to do is to see that they can dismantle him to an extent that when that time comes, people might not consider him to be the flag bearer. They're actually doing what we call, it's just a matter of doing serious damage to his image. But I just want to pose about 3 questions which will open our minds as Kenyans. The first question, this Kenya Kwanza government, from what we have seen and we have gone around, and Honorable Kero has confirmed that, it is a one-term government, which means you have about 2 years to get this government out of power. What would it really motivate someone to join it? Why would Kalonzo have to join a government which will only be within 2 years, they will be losing? So the thing is, why would you want to work with that camp called Kenya Kwanza, where Ruto will be the president, knowing by joining that, I will be going to opposition, which means whatever position they will promise him, he will not get it. Because if you are either president or deputy president, and your coalition loses, you don't get any position. That's the first thing. The second question is, what would Kalonzo be gaining by being given a deputy president's position? He has been the first president of this country in the past for 5 years. So if you had to go for anything, the same position, then you can easily get it from the other side, if you wanted that position. So the question is, by telling him, come and become my deputy, it's not to Kalonzo as a person, it's not a promotion, it's still the parallel position. So there's not that, unless they will be telling him, come over to Kenya Kwanza, be the presidential candidate, and then Ruto steps aside. That might make sense. But not the idea of become my deputy. To me, so I don't think Kalonzo would be that stupid to join Ruto as a deputy president, and then when he can be the president, he has always been a deputy president. The third question is, this propaganda, and I don't know whether it is media, I don't know whether it is, but you know government generates propaganda and can share with the media. I don't want to call it media propaganda, but I think it is a very well calculated move to mess the image of Kalonzo. You know, they used to say, he has said that he is a watermelon. Now he has come out stronger and that tag is disappeared because somebody else has taken over that tag. Now they want to brand another tag to him. So, and that tag, they want now to bring the watermelon argument back to Honorable Kalonzo. I think we have been unfair. The thing is, people are saying he's been offered money. People are saying he has been approached. And this talk is also in Parliament. I've heard it. People are saying your boss is crossing over. And I ask them, crossing over to what? I think really this is just tricks of the government to make sure they divide the united opposition. The united opposition is a really threat to Kenya Kwanza. So anything they would want to try any tactic in the book to divide opposition. What I would just encourage the principals is that if they attempt to go one on their own way, they will be slaughtered in different rooms. And they'll never be there anymore.
But this has happened quite a number of times. I think it's only that one instance that you quoted in 2002 that we saw the dream of a united opposition becoming a reality and defeating the regime that was there. Yes. But it is very rare. Previously, before that, we saw everyone going their own way. And after that, we've had people still having very many different candidates based on the blocks that we have. What is so different right now? Just because it happened in 2002, what gives you such confidence that it will happen this time around?
Well, I happen to have been not one of the architects, but one of the players or one of the fundis in the run-up to 2002 general election. And some of the signs of the time, telltale signs, you know, like from the community that I come from, you can know there is going to be good harvest at the beginning of the year by looking at the fruits or some of the trees that will be flowering. There are certain trees when they flower, you know there's not good rain, or the rain is going to be very turbulent. And certain fruits when they flower, certain trees when they flower, you know there are good rains, and it's a sign of good times. And therefore you can also plant knowing that there's going to be a good harvest. The way I've seen it at the beginning, because there are two major things, Fred, that you know, politicians need to look at. The issue of ego. Management of egos is an art in leadership that requires a lot of constant massage and constant prodding for issues to be done the right way. There is also the question of trust. And the trust, if the Honorable Pokisho was here, he would have explained to us better. But suffice to say the following: trust is always required. That's why the trust that was built by NAK before we came together with LDP to form the National Rainbow Coalition was a very critical element. And I can see that among the principles in the 6 parties that we are already working together. I see that, and I'm privileged to be interacting with a number of players from across the board, and you are getting good vibes that people are ready to compromise. To go back to the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, Kalonzo Musyoka is my senior both in terms of politics. He was in parliament almost like 5 years before I joined, and he has risen higher than I've ever risen, and also he's senior in terms of age. Today, Kalonzo Musyoka can actually say he's not running, and he retires more honorable than if he was to say he's going to Kenya Kwanza, either as a presidential candidate, as a running mate, or as any other player. You know, there is this animal that is known by Mbadi called skunk. A skunk, whenever you interface with it, it is likely to create some false smell around you that even if you took a shower, some of the clothes that you wore are going to maintain the same smell. Today, Kenya Kwanza qualifies to be a skunk. No wonder Mbadi has already joined them. He's one of the skunks of Kenya Kwanza.
But speaking of opposition unity, and now that we are drawing comparisons with what happened in 2002, that unity probably came towards the tail end of that election cycle. But this time around, we are seeing we have 2 years to that. The sustainability of this, because Bonakiro says there's a lot of massaging of egos, especially with these party leaders. For how long can this union stay when there's need for massaging egos for 2 years?
You know where you have a common goal, and if you all have the same vision, the unity can be maintained even for longer than 2 years. So long as you, and I think really, there's also pressure from the Kenyans. I think Kenyans are telling the Kenyan leaders that we are tired of this government, basically because it is not delivering as promised. We are suffering out here. We have said we are suffering, and they keep on saying things are good. You know, anytime you conduct any research in this country, could it be just a perception survey? People are saying we are suffering. But not even as they say we are suffering, the leaders are saying things are okay. Anytime you look at the Kenya Kwanza leaders talk, they always keep, we are doing well, we have reduced prices. Yeah, prices have come down. But people are saying we can't afford, we are still suffering. So on the basis of that, there's a lot of pressure building around the leaders, the so-called principals, to make sure that they remain united for the sake of Kenyans to change governance. So anybody who will not be working towards this unity will be seen as a betrayer. And I can tell you, some political careers are going to be messed permanently, depending on which decision you make. So these principles are under a lot of pressure and a lot of scrutiny. And I'm telling you, any misstep, you see some political careers being buried permanently, so that people will never come back to politics again. Because Kenyans are annoyed, Kenyans are saying it is time, you must remain united, and anybody who make an attempt to destroy that unity will be a marked person in the future.
Yet there are some serious challenges coming up, and with the by-elections especially, that could spur some sibling rivalry between the parties. Malava constituency, for example, where most of the parties have decided to field candidates. Even DCP is fielding a candidate there. Of course, DAP will want to fight for the same. Don't you think that such challenges could actually, because party leaders may be forced to go and campaign for their separate candidates, that could be a problem?
No, this being by-elections, each party might want to try their luck. They might want to show their power because it's a by-election, it's just a one-off. But I can tell you at the right time, the United Opposition will still have to sit down, either through opinion polling or scientific research, to determine which party is more popular in this area. And on the basis of that, I think it might be a good start for them now to start fielding a united candidate also, so that we say this candidate is a candidate for all of us as United Opposition. And we all go into it, support that candidate, and win. If you remember the issue of Kiamba, the first UDA member of parliament, that's normally what would happen, that you say we are all parties, we can field candidates, but for the sake of now starting to work as a team, let's agree this one will field so and so, or which party, and then support the party. And that would also be a good sign to our unity into the future. Because it means into the future can also be able to come and agree, because there are ways of determining which party is more popular where. There are ways of determining, scientific ways. And if you do it correctly, you'll not mess it, you'll get it right. So, but this idea of let's just field for the sake of it, that is dividing now the United Opposition forward, and more likely you can allow room for somebody else to take over the seat. So to me, this is a first test to see, can we work as a team? I see this happening in Malava, as you are saying. I see this happening in Bere, because Bere is another area where people will have to sit on a round table and discuss and say, for us to win this seat, what does it take? And there has to be a number of sacrifices for some of these positions to be taken by the United Opposition. Otherwise, if you don't get it right, we still be going the direction Kenyans are telling us, don't go that direction.
Okay. The other challenge, or the other factor that should be considered even in the unity of the opposition, is former President Uhuru Kenyatta. His position there, his candidate of choice, who it's been mentioned time and again that Fred Matiang'i is his candidate of choice. Whether that is true or not, he's yet to speak out openly. But do you think that the place of Jubilee Party, President Uhuru Kenyatta, and his preferred candidate could also be a factor to influence the unity of the opposition?
Definitely the Uhuru Kenyatta of 2022 is a different person from Uhuru Kenyatta of 2027, or even currently. He has occupied a very prominent position in terms of respectability in society. And the propaganda that Kenya Kwanza team had heaped on him seems to have, he has been able to shed it off, and people have already proven that he was right, and the rest of us who believed otherwise were wrong. This therefore means you cannot underrate the position he will take. But good enough, Jubilee is one of the 6 parties I mentioned to you earlier, through their own representatives and even the chairman of the party, has been among the principals of the coalition that I belong to. And I know at the right time, you know, President Uhuru Kenyatta, he may not have to make his choice known. And even up to now, he has not said Matiang'i is his choice. What has been said, it has been said by the Honorable Kioni. But at the level of the party leader, he has not made that pronouncement, and I don't think he will make it soon. He will allow the due process to take shape, and whoever emerges as the consensus candidate, and this is what I always believe in, it is not going to just be an individual who is the best among them all. He's going to be the best, he's going to be one of among equals, who will be said, yes, you are carrying the flag, but you are carrying on our behalf. And it's going to be a team. akin to what Kibaki did in 2002. Because even those of us who did not have as much weight as the rest, when Kibaki gave you a position, you knew you had a job. And you had a job that you are responsible for either doing the right job, and if you made mistakes, he allowed you to be swept by the tide. So my feeling is that we are looking for a team of individuals who, when they pick one of their own, that is going to be the person that is going to bring unity. I feel that is more important because this one-man show that we've seen with Kenya Kwanza is something that is retrogressive and is against any leadership principles all over the world. Mm-hmm. In any leadership position, you must allow people to feel they are part of a team, and therefore they have a collective wisdom and a collective vision with you in the direction that you are moving. But of course, Kenya Kwanza has been one-man show, mm-hmm. and is one term because it's one-man show.
Do you agree with Bonamulu that probably for the united opposition parties, it would be ill-advised to field separate candidates for the by-elections that are coming up once the date is set?
It is useful, but the principle and the thinking that and the philosophy that we have, those of us who are involved in the details, is that each constituency must be seen as a unique entity. A unique entity in the sense that there are some areas, even if DCP, DP, and Wiper were to field, one of them will win because the Kasongo does not exist in some of those constituencies. But in these borderline constituencies, we need to carefully craft the kind of candidate to present to the people.
Well, one of the most contested is Malava. We've seen even agents of Kenya Kwanza and UDA camping there for quite a while. Is it advisable for DCP to field a candidate there while DAPK is also doing the same?
I'll be prejudicing any negotiations that I can be called as an elder to give my opinion. But of course, the way Kenya Kwanza has been doing it is totally the opposite of what I know politics is all about. Remember, the Honorable Njendi was a member of Amani Coalition, where Musalia Mudavadi was a party leader at the time he won the election. But I've been seeing the people who are going to Lugari are not only people from outside Lugari, but they're also outside the community that seems to be the majority in that constituency. Because basically, Malava constituency is a constituency that we have shared so many friends, including the late Soita Shitanda. And even starting with Mzee Brudi Nabwera, people like the late Angatia, people like the late Anaswa. There was somebody called Anaswa that came to parliament at the same time with me. So this is a constituency I know very well. But the people who have been going there are actually strangers, masquerading, weeping more than they believed. They are not weeping in Njendi, they are weeping their own misery.
All right, opposition unity at risk as leadership feuds intensify. That's the headline on page 7 of this paper, talking about matters to do with the by-election. Also that story to do with a new movement, Kenya Moja, made up of youthful leaders, including the SG of ODM. Just some discussions around the possible unity of the opposition. On the Standard, inside Ruto's plot to split opposition and retain power in 2027, and the position of Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka. According to this story, there have been overtures from Kenya Kwanza. And according to the story, he's been offered money to join Kenya Kwanza and become William Ruto's running mate come 2027. That's some of the discussions there. Okay, gentlemen, I want us to move to another discussion that has made headlines over the past 2 weeks or so, following the announcement by the IEBC chairperson with regard, and this was a pronouncement with regard to Article 104 of the Constitution on the right of recall. It's a very short article with only 2 provisions. One, the electorate under Article 97 and 98 have the right to recall the Member of Parliament representing their constituency before the end of the term of the relevant House of Parliament. And 2, Parliament shall enact legislation to provide for the grounds on which a member may be recalled and the procedure to be followed. The pronouncement by the IEBC chairperson, basically, he said that there's no provision for recalling a member of parliament. It is there, it is very clear. But it would appear first part of this article is simply cancelled by the second part of the same. When Makali Mulu, you are a member of the National Assembly. Do you agree that the second part of this article basically cancels the right in itself?
The right to recall.
To recall.
Yeah, you know, I think what the law says is that Kenyans have a right, the electorate can recall a member of parliament. But for that to happen, then there must be a legislation done by parliament, an act of parliament. And for an act of parliament to be in place, members of parliament must sit, come up with a bill, or a bill be originated by somebody, be debated and passed. So I think what really the chairman, electoral body was saying is that yes, the Act 104 Part 1 says you can recall, but Part 2 has not been implemented.
Yeah.
So on the basis that Part 2 not been there, then you don't have any grounds or any mechanism to recall a member.
You sit in that house.
Yeah, I do.
And is it possible for the house to collectively come up with an act that would see any of them recalled? Because the way we know our politicians, whenever it is up to their own interests, they vote in a certain way. And that's a question. That's why I'm asking, does Part 2 of this article basically cancel the whole right to recall?
I think you are right, Fred. Because you know the thing is, if our framers of the Constitution wanted this clause to be effective, they should have taken that initiative to do it that then. You know, I remember we had about, there was the Committee on Implementation of the Constitution, which was given some mandate to make sure that some specific laws were enacted by Parliament within some given time frame. I'm surprised this was not included as part of that. And that's why it has never been implemented, because, you know, I've been in Parliament now for 13 years. I've never seen an attempt to have this done. So you are right. I think whoever came up with the Constitution, I don't think they wanted this to be implemented.
Yes, there was a lot of excitement last year.
It was dead on arrival. That's what I would say.
During the Gen Z protests, and the young Kenyans were looking forward to when the IBC would be in place so that they can recall some of their members of parliament, because they had a lack of confidence in most of the members. Yes. But it would appear this is an exercise in futility, and the problem is with the constitution and the provisions there, that this is dead on arrival.
Fred, you are precisely right in the sense that there are many other laws also and other provisions that are given, and Parliament is expected to be able to enact a specific law to make sure that part of the Constitution is implemented, including academic qualifications. It was said that Parliament shall enact a law that will determine what is the level of education one must have to be a member of Parliament. That one has been watered down, it is not there. And you've seen even the one, they were almost insisting that to be a governor, you must have a university degree, has been watered down by certain rulings, certain cases in court, such that even anybody can now say he can run for governor without necessarily having university degree. This is something that we feel as a leadership, we need to rise to the occasion. Perhaps to cure that particular thing is to use the same tradition that we have when it comes to standing orders. Today, if the Parliament or the National Assembly of the day that Mheshimiwa Dr. Mulu is part of, was to enact or was to pass certain standing orders guiding the procedure in the House, they will not use that those standing orders until the next House. This may be a way of curing somebody so that he does not feel he is a victim of the laws that he is about to vote for. in that way, we'll be able to allow some kind of continuity and allow people to think about these institutions more philosophically than the way we take institutions. Because as you've said, many of us, for the 20 years I served the people of Cherangani constituency, and I always appreciate them, when it came to anything that was going to give us favors, there was no opposition, there was no government side. It was that now, this is our time. And some members of parliament, I don't want to name names, were so aggressive that if you told them, why don't we reason this way? He said, if you leave this house without this benefit, you will not have time to reason. And I think they were right, I was wrong. Because when I left parliament, it's now almost 20 years by the next election. So if the late Peter Oloaringo had not passed the pension bill for purposes of having some little pension, possibly I will not be able to come to the studio.
But if we were to examine the Constitution 2010, this is 15 years later. Yeah. And we are in a position where for the first time we've seen even the removal of a deputy president through provisions of this Constitution. An MCA can be removed, a governor can be impeached, the president, if we may go by the same token, can also be impeached, and we've seen that happening with the deputy president. Yet members of parliament can simply not be touched. Where did we get it wrong?
I think we got it wrong by what Honorable Kiro said. You know, like he has said, now we have standing orders for the 13th Parliament. Now, if you want to amend the current standing orders, they can only be amended to serve the next Parliament. So it means by the time we close this Parliament, the committee which looks at the standing orders will sit and amend the standing orders to be used for the next Parliament. So what is happening now, the technical people are taking note of what needs to be amended as we debate and as we conduct our business. But come the end of this term, then they will sit and do the amendments. So the 14th Parliament will come and have now amended standing orders and start implementing. I think that's what we should be doing. That by the time they were doing the Constitution, they should have actually done this thing then. It's just like the what we call the campaign financing bill. You know, how to finance our there are some things that when you push to the members to do, because of what you call the interest, the personal interest in that bill, they might not be able to do a good job. And I think that's why you see this as dragged for now over how many years? Over about 15 years since the new Constitution. Because the question is, we are all in that house, and then you know what it takes to be elected, to be a member of parliament. Yeah. It's not a walk in the park. It's serious business. And then you are telling me, after my people have elected me 1 or 2 years, then I give them an opportunity to recall me, and you want me to give that opportunity. Somebody should be given that mandate. We're just saying that a mandate should be done by somebody else, not a sitting member. So maybe what you can do is now possibly say, this house is likely to be going home, all of you are likely to be going home. Yeah. So can you now do a law so that who come next after you can now implement? That might make, but so long as the members know we want to come back to this house, it will take a lot of time for this to be done. And I can see it's like, because what you realize, the same Constitution, when it came to finalization, it was done by members of parliament. The same people passed this Constitution. So don't be surprised that part 2 was sneaked in at the final stage. Because I can't imagine how to find that part 2. I can't imagine who put it there. Because by putting it there, one becomes dead. So it's just like saying, you cannot recall a member of parliament. It was just simple. So we might think outside the box. How can we then come up with the law which can make members of... I don't know. Maybe ask county assemblies to craft one.
Yeah. Should this be one of those articles that should be relooked at now that we're talking about the possibility of a referendum at some point in the near future, and to change 1 or 2 things in our constitution? Should we look at getting rid of this right to recall if it's not tenable, if it's just an exercise in futility? Well,
it's a very important democratic yardstick, so that you know, when people, you know, they say disorder is the normal state of affairs. Order is a state of affairs that you have to force in. And therefore, good manners also must be forced so that somebody knows, if I don't behave well, there can be something that will restrain me from excesses of bad manners. This therefore means, if I was to give a prescription to it, is that one, there should be a period that you allow at least somebody 2 years, and so that recall can become the 3rd year. By the 4th year, you restrain anybody from recalling, because after all, the next election are not so far, and you can deal with me in the next 2 years. And also some safeguard that, yes, you can recall me, but this must be the procedure to be followed, so that somebody does not misuse the fact that he comes from a certain location where they have about 30% of the people. You must also give very good prescription. Many members of parliament don't get 50% of their votes. Some of them get even up to 28%. I remember when I lost the election, the person who came in had only 28% of the votes cast. This therefore means that is somebody who can easily be recalled after 1 year or even after 1 day, because he does not have the total mandate of the constituency. But you see, because ours is first past the post, we must also give a latitude that if somebody wins by you dividing your votes and allowing a minority to be a member of parliament, then you must give a yardstick that spreads throughout the constituency, so that people just don't recall because we didn't win, we must bring you back. Because if you give somebody 2 years, by which time he will have either settled or he will have destroyed himself.
Right.
Yeah.
Article 104, right to recall, 2 parts. Part 1, the electorate under Articles 97 and 98 have the right to recall the Member of Parliament representing their constituency before the end of the term of the relevant House of Parliament. A very progressive, very enticing provision of our Constitution, but Part 2 says Parliament shall enact legislation to provide for the grounds on which a member may be recalled, they themselves, to come up with a law to recall themselves, which is basically an exercise in futility. And one wonders why we have such a provision. As we come to the end of our discussion, and this, I cannot see it anywhere on the front pages, but I believe it's something that needs to be talked about. It's the issue about funding for education system. Last week, a number of schools had to close down early because of lack of funds. Capitation to schools is a big problem. And the CS for Treasury appeared before Parliament and said, even going forward, free primary education and secondary education, free secondary education as well, should be relooked at because it's no longer tenable. Now, such a statement is a heavy one coming from the CS. Of course, the President came after that and tried to clarify on a few issues there. But the CS told Parliament, he did not just say it anywhere, he was telling members of Parliament, meaning that coming from the cabinet perspective, this is a serious problem. There's an issue, and this is one of the solutions that the CS provided, that members of Parliament, through their NGCDF, if at all they could agree for all this money to be given to the Treasury CS, then he'll be able to sort out the problem. This is another issue that he brought back to members of Parliament, to your doorstep. Do you think it's possible for us to get there, where we no longer discuss NGCDF and bursaries being run by members of Parliament, and that funding for schools should be centralized?
We can actually get there, but to me it was just a lame excuse. You know, Fred, what has happened is, we have said many times as members of Parliament, we have no problem the bursary going back to the government, if that is the best way to do it. But what we have a problem is a situation where the money will go, because it used to be there. It's not the first time the money is not there. It used to be there. And what we are saying is, if they can take back all the money from the NGCDF, but ensure that no student will come to a member of parliament saying, I have no fees. I have no problem. And for me, what I've said is, why can't we sit down as a country, look at what bursaries have been given by the MP, what bursaries have been given by the county governments, what bursaries have been given by the women rep, because they also have a bursary component, and how much are we giving also through the presidential. There's also a presidential bursary scheme, which also has money for bursaries. If we are able to do a thorough study and say, this is the much we require to provide free education for secondary and primary education, and look at whether by bringing all this money together, we have that money. I will say, hallelujah, take the money. But the challenge we have is they want to take the money and still have students who are from the needy communities not going to school. The other thing is the equity in terms of sharing these resources. There's been an issue. Today they will say, let's take the money back to the education, and then they go back to their bad manners of not giving some counties and some constituencies bursary money. That has happened. We have so much money for infrastructural development under the Ministry of Education, because I sit in the budget committee. And if you ask where that money goes in this country, you find it goes to very selected regions. Other regions are left out on the basis of political issues. And that's what we are saying, matters equity. That's what we see we have said as members of parliament, matters equity. For us to address equity in this country, we must have this kind of resources. We must have the county equitable share, which goes to every county, irrespective of how you voted. We must have the NGCDA, which goes to every constituency, irrespective of how you voted. And we are now saying it is important we must also have the World Development Fund, so that the governor does not take advantage of regions which have not voted for him and leave out some wards. Because we have seen also marginalization at the level of the counties. It used to be at the national level, now it is at the level of the counties, where a governor thinks, since I have not been voted in this region, wards in that region should be left out. So for me, from where I sit, I have not, but I'm just saying, Bandi, this free education. And I said this just to me when I looked at Bandi talk, when I looked at the CS education talk and then the president. I said, I think by law, the cabinet is the only place where you have Kenya talking from the same page. So I see a cabinet which is talking from different pages. And if I were to believe anybody, I would believe Bandi more. Because Bandi is the CS, Treasury. That's the one in charge of the CFC, the Consolidated Fund Services. So when Bandi says there is no money, I would trust him more than when the Minister of Education says there is no money.
Okay. There's a headline here on page 8 talking about a push for a probe into 3.7 billion shilling ghost school scam probe. There appears to be some money, yes.
Yeah.
But do you think that such headlines could mean that even the CS is being disingenuous? That because you are part of the cabinet that began free primary education in this country.
Yes.
The sustainability of the same is what is being questioned. Do you think that the problem right now is sustainability, that we simply do not have money?
Well, the way I see it is actually a governance issue. Governance issue is in the sense that, one, the current system seems to have their priorities wrong. How can you be doing a lot of renovations? I saw some young lady called Uko in the office of the president the other day, sleeping in the office for 3 days to make sure that her office, she's not evicted from the first floor, ground floor, to 8th floor. Because she says that the moment they renovate, I'll be removed from here, and I always need a wheelchair to get into the office, and the 8th floor. And for the last time I knew, government lifts don't operate 24 hours. At times they break down, and you are forced to go up the floor, up the steps. And this therefore means the lady that I'm referring to will have either to be lifted to the 8th floor and later on to be lowered down to the ground floor, or she has to abscond duty, and then the discipline measures will visit her immediately. But a more important issue is we are talking about this when we're doing a lot of renovations. Number two, we are talking about this when there is money going to ghost schools to the extent of 3.7 billion to schools that we do not know. There is a signpost properly mapped that 4 kilometers there is school X. And if you are to follow that route, the 4 kilometers will end, and you will realize your vehicle has told you you're already at the school, only to realize that there's no school. And they are getting capitation, they are getting the normal disbursement, and yet we are saying there is no money. If that is glaring coming from the Auditor General, how many other pilferage routes are we likely to be facing? Now, the main problem is that we seem to have accepted devolution, but reluctantly. Reluctantly in the sense that CDF, for me, we were calling CDF during my time, was a form of devolution. Actually, it came before devolution. It was making sure that the money that gets into the constituency is almost assured. The first amount was 6 million shillings presented to us per constituency, given to us by the late David Mwiraria, then 17 million, then another 34 million. By the time I left my constituency, for that last 5 years I served, I had benefited with 100 million. And yet the other 15 years I had served in the same constituency, we hardly had more than 10 million getting to Cherangani constituency through the normal government projects. This therefore means, for me, money going to the constituency is okay. We just may need to see how can we improve the management of that money at the constituency level. Number two, the government cannot tell us it is not sustainable. They cannot say Kibaki's children were fewer than the children they have today. Kibaki's budget was less than 1 trillion. Today, you are talking about 4.2 trillion. This therefore means this budget envisages that we have more children today going to school than during the time of Kibaki. And therefore, that is non-issue. And without getting annoyed, at times it is so annoying to see people visiting Kibaki in his grave and talking about it as if they are fighting him. They should realize Kibaki is not going to be a candidate in the next election. The candidate will be William Ruto and others. And the candidate is going to face is not necessarily the candidate from the opposition. It is the candidate from his own false promises that he has given to the people of Kenya, including lying that we have received about 1.2 billion shillings from Kenyans who have been abroad, and there are 400,000 of them. When you do that math, it does not exist. If you are to do math, there is no single individual earning about 3 million shillings outside there. But the president has the audacity to tell the public and make it appear that Mutua all of a sudden has become a magician, that we just moving his hands, 400,000 people are out of Kenya, and moving his hands, they are bringing $30,000 every month. It is not possible.
All right. Definitely a big discussion there. On page 8 of this is the Daily Nation, talks about push for 3.7 billion shilling ghost schools scam probe. Legitimate schools face a crippling 117 billion shilling funding shortfall, and fears are rife that more learners will drop out. The CS said going forward, free primary education and even free secondary education is no longer tenable. We need to relook at that. And he expressed the fact that this will be the last financial year where exam fees will be paid for all learners. Come next year, they will only pay for needy learners. We have about 4 minutes, so I'll give you 2 minutes each for your final comments, starting with you, Dr. Mulu.
Yeah, on this issue of exam fee, I still think that, all children are Kenyan children. And it would be very unfortunate that we start discriminating on the basis of who is able to afford and who can't afford. And the reason I'm saying that is, if you look at our taxation regime, it's a progressive regime, whereby even the so-called the rich, they also pay a lot of money in form of taxes. So I think it would be good to treat our children the same. It's not a lot of money. Looking at what the kind of money we are paying to go to schools, I don't think really, because we budget for much, about it was 5.8 billion to take care of the exam fee. Now, when you talk about 3.7 going to go to schools, I think at times you get our priorities wrong. And that's why I agree with what Honorable Kero is saying, basically, that the issue of whether we can fund free education is a question of not whether we can fund. We can fund. It's a question of whether we are applying our resources well. Because when you look at the kind of the misdirection, the misapplication, the corruption involved around our public resources, we have much more than we need to fund our free education. And free education is a right. It's already in the Constitution. So, you know, when something has been put in the Constitution as a right, it means as you do your budgets, it should be a priority number one because it's a right to Kenyans. So this talk about we can't fund is just it's a joke. For me, I think really we need to sit and say, what can we not do today so that we fund free education? Actually, it should not be a debate. It should be just like, where do we get the resources from? And I think Honorable Bandi, if he sits down and looks at the budget, he can easily get the money we require from other sources. Like he can do with these ghost schools, he will have saved 3.7. These renovations we are seeing all over the place. I'm telling you, there's so much renovation going on in this country, you wonder whether it is necessary. And basically it's a way of getting public resources out to the pockets of individuals. If they sealed those loopholes, we will have more money than we require to fund free education. And free education for secondary schools and primary is mandatory. Let's not make it a debate. Let's look for resources to fund it.
Thank you, Dr. Mulu. Finally, Borakiro.
Well, for me, it's really to wish Harambee Stars happy ending, because it is important that cumulatively they get us more and more results to the positive, both for their pockets and also for the ego of our nation. I feel they have done us proud and they can do more. And as we said at the beginning, the government should think of sports in terms of policy pronouncement, so that we know how do we deal with athletes, how do we deal with sportsmen and women across the board. In that way, we'll be empowering a sector that has hitherto been ignored, but is one of the most important sectors of our economy.
All right. Thank you so much, Kipruto Rapkirwa, who is Minister for Agriculture in the Kibaki administration and also has served as member of the National Assembly for Cherangani constituency, and Dr. Makali Mulu, who is MP for Kitui Central. Thank you for your time. Yes, indeed, Harambee Stars is a big discussion. Is there on all the front pages today. Harambee Stars kick-off Chan with historic win on the Daily Nation. Chan, one goal, one nation, one dream. Kuna wengine wanaongeza mwingine hapo mwisho. And on the front page of the Star, great start for Harambee Stars. That's a big headline there. And it's interesting just how much 1 million shillings can do for the players. Well, after the break, we'll be having that discussion and a lot more. Chan is already underway. Monday Blitz, Katela Macy and Fred Arocho will be in studio with their panelists to discuss this and a lot more. My name is Fred Indemuli. Have a lovely morning.
Thank you.